Hey
All
guys.
right.
Hey
Hello.
guys, how you
Hello,
doing?
Vineyard. Good. That's Hi everybody. That's Mike Edwards there between Doug and I, and Mike is joining us from
Hi.
Estes Park, Colorado. And we're very happy to have him. In case you didn't know, we tried to have Mike on recently, and the technology let us down, but we've got it all fixed, and we got a good connection. And Mike Edwards is a good friend of the Vineyards, and he's spent quite a bit of time with us. He's an author. He's an apologist. And apologists aren't people that apologize for things. They're defenders of the faith. And so I've asked him to spend a little time with us today. And he's written a book that we've given out. We've probably given out thousands of copies of Mike's book called Gravity, True for You but Not for Me. And so you might have gotten that book from us. If you haven't, you can get that on Amazon for free. You can download that book, and it's an excellent book. It's an excellent read. Like I said, so we've given away thousands of copies of that book. And also, his website is godevidencetruth.com. Great source of information. And he also writes a lot of articles on faithwriters.com. So if you at the end of this thing, if you want to check out and get some more information from Mike, that's where you would find it. But we're happy to have him with us, and I'm gonna fire off some questions to him in just a minute and let him sort of tell us about some of the things he's doing. But nice to have you with us on the light side, Mike. What's the weather like right now in Colorado?
It's I'm at about 7,500 foot elevation, and it's been really nice. Been a little hot today, probably in the low 80s, but normally in the 70s and down to about 40 at night. So it's been gorgeous. I'm, in the mountain. It's beautiful around here. Estes Park, Colorado. Oh, gorgeous place.
Yeah, we were in Colorado last year. Was it last year, Doug, that we were all out there for that conference?
Yeah, we were Denver, Arvada for the national conference there for Vineyard USA. It was a really nice area.
Yeah, we got to enjoy the mountains, and we drove up into the mountains, and it was. I had fun. Alice and I were exploring up in the mountains, and we were listening to John Denver music. So it was like
I
perfect.
think I think Doug would fit good in the mountains. Actually, he really would. He'd be a mountain guy.
Lumberjack
Yeah,
going on. Yeah.
yeah,
He could grow grow his beard out, and put
But
on
there,
a flannel
yeah.
shirt and go
yeah,
out in the
man.
woods and stuff. Man, there's a lot of
Get
people he
get
could preach to here too.
Kim
yeah.
would love
Get one of
that.
those.
Uh,
She
Get
she
one of those
always
good.
long beards.
she either wants a
Yeah,
mountain cabin or a Victorian house. So I'd rather have a cabin in the mountains.
like log cabin.
Yeah,
Yeah, up in the
Yeah,
woods.
man.
Yeah, there's some nice
yeah.
places up here. Yeah, it's good. And I'll tell you,
Something.
the rivers are flowing. I'm right on a river here, the Big Thompson River, and they're flowing because of all the snow melt. Man, they're heavy. And I'm
Yeah,
right next to Rocky National Mountain Park too, which is a gorgeous area.
yeah.
So,
When I was a young man, back when I was 19, I lived in Colorado for a while, and
oh, did you?
yeah, outside of Boulder, a little town called Longmont. Um, so that
Okay,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
long time, 40 years ago, and
I'm not far,
I
not far from there. Yeah.
yeah, I loved it. It was beautiful. I stayed for a while, but then that was where I was right before I came to the Keys, and then I moved here and I never left. So I got to enjoy it for a little while. It was beautiful, but I'm here. That's now I'm planted. So unless God sends me somewhere else, I imagine this is where I'll stay. But
Hmm.
good, we got folks that'll pop online and stuff. Fran saying hi to Mike, and like I said,
Hey,
Mike is a
Fran.
good friend, big friend of the Vineyard
Yeah.
of ours. So Mike, you travel around right now. You have an opportunities to travel, and I know that you do a lot of writing and stuff while you're traveling. But um, you one of your favorite things is engaging people in conversation and talking to them about Jesus. And you as an apologist, you're good at that, and you're very upfront with that. And so I thought I'd start by asking you, so how do you engage people in conversation, just kind of as you travel and as you meet people?
Well, when I'm going, I just do it as I don't go out on a special trip ever to talk to somebody. I just do it through my daily life. And actually, I'm looking more. I'm not a real big sightseer. I mean, I see a lot of beautiful things, but I'm really looking more for people to talk to, and that can be in this campground I'm in, or a lot of times it's on the trail up in the middle of the woods. I'll meet somebody on the trail, and a conversation will start up in the natural. I talked to somebody today, to a couple of people today, up on a trail I was hiking on this morning, and I yeah, I just start something in the natural, just a little brief conversation in the natural. Then after that I'm very direct. And through the years, God is before I wrote that book, Gravity, back in 2011, 12. I had already been talking to people for a long time, and God's used a lot of different questions through this time, through the years that I've asked people different questions. And the one that He gave me in about a year ago now, I've been asking, and I like it the best. It's very direct, and you'd be amazed at the answers you get. But what I do is I start talking to people in the natural. We'll get a little conversation. It only has to be a few minutes, and then I'll say to them, I'll say, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I say that to get them to look right at me. Then I say to them, "How long have you been trusting Jesus as your Savior?" That's my question. And you'd be amazed. Number one, you'd be amazed at the number of people that are. And what I'm going to say to you is when they say to me, the waitress at Denny's says to me, "For as long as I can remember," or "since I was a little girl," or the guy in Myrtle Beach that's in his 20s that's looking for shark's teeth, real good looking kid. And I said to him, I said, "How long have you been trusted?" After I talked to him for a second, I said it to him, and he said to me, "You got to be kidding." I don't know what he's going to say, but what he said next was 3.5 weeks. And so I get
Wow.
all kinds of answers, right? And now in that situation, that kid was in his 20s. I really believe he needs to know what's in that book. Um, and we had a great talk. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of really neat incidences in talking, amazing things where God was involved. Um, but I just, it's a very direct question. And why I like it is this, is number one, these people are confessing Christ to a complete stranger. When I ask them that, they're saying, and you would be amazed how many people will say, "Yes, I am." In that way, or they'll give me an answer. They'll say, "Well, I've been trusting him for this as long as I can remember." Or I remember one guy 10 years, and the person with him didn't say anything. This was in San Diego, and she didn't say a word, and he said 10 years. And I talked to him for a little bit. I gave him a book. You know what? That opened up a conversation for them. But if it's a believer, I like to see him. If it is a believer, I fan their faith. I don't care how small it is. I encourage them and I fan their faith, and I tell them how much they're loved. And a lot of people. I had a lady just the other day up around Telluride, up in the mountains, hiking at about 9,500 feet. I ran into these two ladies, and they had a baby. One had a baby on her back, on this trail in the aspen trees, a gorgeous trail. And I ran into them on the trail, and she was from Tennessee, and she said, after we talked, she said, "I've been really struggling with my faith." She said, "With all this stuff going on." She said, "I'm definitely going to read this book. I need this book." And so I tell you what's amazing. And people say, "Wow, that's really a bold question. Or that's really in your face." I'm amazed at how well it goes. I really am. And then if they don't believe, I try and engage them if they will engage. Um, but I had a guy in Cortez, Colorado. I'm getting ready to leave, and I come out of the bathroom at this campground, and there's a guy washing his camp dishes, and I say hi, and I walk by. Well, God tells me to turn around and go back and talk to him, so I go back and talk to him, and this guy, we're standing there for a few minutes. He's from Sedona, Arizona. He's a New Age believer. And he says to me, "My back is hurting. Can we sit down at the table and talk?" So he invites me to sit at the picnic table and talk to him. So what I'm saying to you is there's people that will listen, people that you can talk to. And this person proceeded to tell me that his father was a strong born again believer and had been talking to him for quite a while. And so we had a 45-minute talk. I wanted to leave because I was leaving that day, but God wanted me to stay and talk to this guy. And it was an amazing talk. And he promised he would read the book. He asked a lot of questions. We went back and forth. And what I'm just saying is if we can get past our fear, people do need to hear. And they do need to be encouraged. I really like that question again because I get to encourage so many people that do believe. And if they reject me and they give me, and I get that now and then, but it's not as much as you would think. Um, I just figured that's not the person I'm looking for. I'm not looking for them. I'm looking for the person, that needs to hear. And I mean, let me just tell you one other thing that I do I've done a lot. I'll be in, I was at last one I can think of was in a parking lot, and I see a guy sitting in a pickup truck, and you can see he's kind of like sitting there by himself, and he's kind of got his head hanging. Something's not quite right. And I go into McDonald's to get my lunch, and I come back out, and I grab a copy of the book, and I go up to his door to the side of his truck, and I've done this a lot. Guys sitting in pickup trucks. I don't know why, but I go up and I'll say, "Hey," and this guy just said, "Hey, I got a question for you." And he looks at me and I said, "How long you been trusting Jesus as your Savior?" But right out the door, right out the gate, guy completely opened up to me and said, "Well, I used to, but I've been really struggling." And I found out he was waiting to pick up his daughter because he was divorced, and his wife was bringing his daughter to that McDonald's is where they were meeting. So it opens up a world of opportunities to share with people. And then what else I do is when I give a book to a believer like that, I say, "Look, read it, and then when you're done with it, I said, please give it to somebody who doesn't believe, is struggling in the faith, or doubts. Just give it to somebody." And I really implore them to do that. And I tell them that it's free on Amazon as an ebook too, if somebody else wants to read it. Just to get them to, they become now an evangelist, or they become, a disciple for Christ. I mean, it gets them out of their shell. And I say, if you can't even do that, I say, just leave the book somewhere. Somebody will find it. God will use it. And,
Yeah.
so it's worked. I mean, I love doing it, actually. I love talking to people like that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you said that's real important too, as you were talking, is how the Lord will direct you to somebody. And there's a sensitivity of the spirit that happens, along the way too. Not, and you can, I mean, certainly you can go and make conversation just because you want to, but when you walk by somebody and that God, you want to go do something else, but you know that God wants you to go and talk to them, and yielding to that, and following through that often produces some of the most amazing results in not only in just opportunities to share. Obviously, your gift is in what you're doing, but even I find even sometimes he'll have me do that if it's just praying for somebody, or knowing that there's something that needs to happen and the Lord will send you. It's just a willingness to respond is so important. And so I know that's why he blesses your journeys like that. So I have some questions, so apologetics, fascinating. It's defending the faith, and so it's not apologizing for the faith. Sometimes the wording is funny for people, but um, there are some things that people say quite often in objecting to Christianity that don't really
I
make
got
sense. Yeah.
I got to shut my windows. Hold on.
Okay. No problem.
There's a big storm coming.
Oh
Uh
boy.
oh. You okay? You all right now?
It's probably the one that was here a few hours ago, right?
Yeah,
Probably
we had
not.
a big storm here too. Really? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
travel. Okay. So so often when you're having these kind of conversation with people, and they'll say things that they believe that are so off base, and there's ways to sort of bring them around. And one of the things is that it's part of apologetics is the law of non-contradiction. And it's a very handy little tool. And I thought maybe you could explain what that is for the folks that are watching.
Well, first off, what I want to say is that I shared my faith with people a long time before I wrote this book. I didn't need. There's ways to do it. I used to use the good person test a lot without even having any evidence. And I want to say this because people don't normally challenge you with this stuff that often. But the law of non-contradiction. If I were to say to you, like I said a second ago, I can't speak a word of English, you would think something's wrong with that statement, right? There's something wrong with that. Um, and because truth never contradicts itself, we know that. We know what Doug's name is, and any other name is a contradiction and thereby false. Okay, so truth never contradicts itself, and so what we can do is we can look at um, the different beliefs. When you take an atheist who says there is no God, and you take a Christian who says there is, or anybody who believes in God, for that example, and they both can't be true at the same time in the same sense. God cannot exist and exist in the same time in the same sense. So we know that they can't both be true. Now, what I do tell people, because I'm real honest with people, I say things like, I'll say, if atheism is true, I'm wrong. What I believe is wrong. This is what I'm talking to people. Okay, if atheism is true, then I'm wrong because my faith does not make the Bible true. We put our faith in the Bible because the evidence suggests and tells us it is true. And I would argue that the evidence for God's existence is God must exist by necessity. Okay, so I always tell people that too. 100% of the observable scientific evidence is in our favor. Um, but when people might say to me, they don't ask me about the law of non-contradiction or something like. What they might say to me is there is no such thing as truth, or you can't know truth. And to those, the answer to both of those would be, how do you know that's true? Because what they're doing is they're making a truth claim that there is no such thing as truth. So if there's no such thing as truth, their truth claim can't be true. You cannot deny truth without affirming it. Okay, you cannot deny truth without affirming it. And when you look at the title of my book, Gravity, True for You but Not for Me, that is a contradiction. That's another term for it would be a self-defeating statement, like I can't speak a word of English. But gravity, true for you but not for me, is a self-defeating statement. Um, because if that's true for everybody, then true for you but not for me can't be true. The book explains it in a much easier way, and it actually took me a little while to wrap my mind around that one, why that contradicts itself. But when somebody says to you, "Yeah, Christianity is true for you, but so and so is true for me," and people confuse belief with truth all the time. You can believe whatever you want, but everything can't be true.
Right. Yeah. And there is a truth. Truth does exist.
Right. Well, if you were dying of a deadly disease, say you had diabetes, would you want me to give you sugar or would you want me to give you a insulin? I mean, what would be the truth? If you were arrested for a murder that you didn't commit, would you want the truth to come out? Truth corresponds to reality, and it corresponds to the object referred to. Um, and yeah, truth exists. I mean, we know that. Use examples like Washington D.C. is the capital of the United States. Any other city, that's the truth. Any other city, no matter how close geographically, is false and a contradiction. Okay, so truth never contradicts itself, like we were talking about.
Yeah. No, it's good because those are, people's, you said something in there too. A lot of times people will say that our it's all our faith, and yet the reality is that there's actually evidence that God exists, that there is truth, that the Bible's true, that the evidence overwhelmingly points in those things, and yet oftentimes people will think there's no evidence for any of those things, and they start saying, well, science, and that science is always in our favor too. Ultimately, it works its way to the truth. It has to.
One of the questions I used to ask people for a long time before I even wrote this book was, I would ask, I said, I've got a question for you, and I would say, is truth important to you? And I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? How important is it? I'd get a 9 or a 10. I'd say, okay, so what's the best way to find truth? And I would ask them, I would say, I'm going to give you 3 examples and you tell me the best way. The first way is feelings. It feels right, so I believe it's true. Number 2, family or friends believe it's true, so I believe it's true. And number 3, evidence, consistency, best fit to the evidence. Now, out of those 3 ways to find truth, which one would you pick is the best way to find truth? 98% of the people would say evidence, consistency, best fit to the evidence. And then I would say to them, okay, I got another question for you. Do you believe in God? And no matter what they would say, I would say, if they said yes or no, I would say, did you follow the evidence? And you know what they would say to me? No, they would say it was either based on feelings or based on what somebody else believes. And so it really put them in a box, is what it did. And they were like, huh. And I'd say, well, you told me truth was important a minute ago, and that evidence was the best way to find it. So why are you making this important decision based on feelings or based on what other people believe? They could be wrong. So that was a question I asked for a long time, actually. I had a lot of fun with
Yeah.
that question.
So you mentioned something else that I think I'd like, because I've heard you talk about it. I think it's a really good thing. So you call it the good person test because it's more relational than fact-based. You don't have to have a lot of this information when you go with it. So what's the good person test?
Well, again, one thing, the question I ask right now, see, the Bible's real clear. The law is made for the unbeliever. It's made to show us our need for Christ. And Paul said, I did not know sin but by the law. So I think one of the mistakes I was making for years, actually, with the good person test is that I was using it generically for everybody. With my question now, I find out if they're a believer or not. If they're a believer, I just fan the faith. I do not use the good person test on them. Jesus always used the law for the proud and grace for the humble. And so, if a person is a believer, I want to encourage their faith because they are not under the law, as you know, Pastor Steve. That doesn't mean we sin, doesn't mean we're supposed to sin. We're actually under the spirit of the law, which is love. And that if you love one another, you're not going to lie and steal and cheat. Um, but the good person test now, if somebody says to me they're not a believer, and I gave one to the guy from Sedona the other day. I told you we sat down for 45 minutes at the picnic table, and he was a new age guy, and he went around and around with me a little bit. So I said, "Hey, I got a question for you." And the good thing about the good person test is it gets away from the place of argument, the mind. It goes to the conscience. And so, and I've had people tremble in front of me. I've had people cry in front of me. I've had some amazing things giving the good person test over the years. But I would say, so can I, and people will take it. It's, or people will start boasting. You can hear in what they're saying that they're a good person, and I'll say, well, can I give you the good person test? And most people will say, sure. And I say, how many lies have you told in your life? And, usually the answer is innumerable. And then I'll say, have you ever stolen anything in your life? And they'll say, when I was a kid. It's almost always when I was a little kid. I stole a piece of candy or
We
something
all
like
hold
that.
on to that little bit of guilt stealing
You know,
candy at the
you know what
store,
I say
right?
a lot? What I say now is, have you ever downloaded anything illegally online or not paid your taxes? And usually I get a yes from that, and they, oh yeah, I did that. And I said, well, that's stealing, isn't it? I said, yeah. So what do you call somebody who steals something, and or a thief, And then I say, have you ever whoops, have you ever looked at a woman with lust? And I point out that Jesus said that was adultery. And then I said, have you ever hated or strongly disliked anybody? And they'll usually say yes. And I'll say, Jesus pointed out that was murder in God's eyes. So, Bob, by your own admission, um, you're a liar, a thief, an adulterer, and a blasphemer at heart. And based on, now I get people that laugh sometimes, like Steve did just there. Okay, I give you a laugh with that, but you know what? I've only had like 5 people in my whole life get mad at me. I've had a few people get really mad at me when I did this, but anger is better than apathy. But what happens is it convicts them, their conscience, and then I say, so if would you be guilty or innocent if you stood before God? And most will admit guilty. Some will dance around, and then I talk to them about that, and then. And then I've had atheists that at the beginning said, I don't believe in God. And I'll say, well, let's just suppose there's a God. And I'll take them through that test. And then they'll admit they're guilty. And then I'll say to them, would you go to heaven or hell after they admit they're guilty? And usually people will say hell right away. Some will dance around a little bit. But then they say hell. And then I say, does that concern you? And I've had atheists at that point in time who 2 minutes ago said they don't believe in God and say yes. Okay. And then I say, well, do you know what God did so you don't have to go to hell? And that's when you present the gospel. But the law breaks up the hard heart, is what it does. It breaks the hard heart. But again, I don't give that to believers. We're under grace. We're saved by faith through grace. We're not under the law, and so I don't use it as much as I used to because I run into a combination of a lot of people. Believers that are struggling, a lot of that, and then non-believers. So. Um, but it's very powerful. I used to do it a lot on chairlifts. I actually used to snowboard a lot, and you get somebody on a chairlift, for like
They're
5 minutes.
stuck.
What are they going to do? They're not going to go nowhere, right? So chairlift's
I,
a big one, I'll tell you.
I used to go do ministry with a guy a lot, and we'd go to jails and everything. And he was famous for, if you ever got in an elevator, if anybody else ever walked on an elevator with us, he would go right at it. You know what I mean? And I used to. That's not my approach. So it worked for him, but I would like, here we go, and he would just, and he got used to him in those things. But it's very direct, kind of in the situation. But the before we came on live, we
I'm
were chatting a little bit before we got going, and one of the things that we've been talking about is the craziness in the world right now, and all the things that are going on, and the reality is that it's the enemy is at work in so many ways right now, and that the way that we make a difference in the world is by introducing people to light. Light overcomes darkness, and these are such dark times. The disease and the horrible racism and all of those things that are going on. It's all the enemy at work, and our hearts have to be pressing into the Lord, asking for opportunities to be light, making sure that we don't put flesh to it, but that we remember where the battle lies, and that we love well. You said yourselves as believers, that's the spirit of the law, is to love well. We're to love folks all in, the way we love God, and we want to make sure that we're focusing in on that. And so I want to encourage all of you to continue to pray during these times, but pray that God would give you opportunities to love people well, and in loving people well, sharing your faith in ways that are helpful and loving and encouraging. And like Mike said, if you I like the fact that he's trying to find out, how their walk is, where they're at, so that he can encourage that if they need to be encouraged. And then if they don't know Jesus, he can move in that direction. And that, I think, a lot of these things are us loving well, loving our neighbors well, looking for opportunities to share with them, and ultimately tell them about Jesus, because that's the only hope that we have. Jesus has always been our hope, and he's the only hope that we have, and we need him so desperately. We need more Jesus, more light in the darkness. That's been what I've been talking about lately, and I've been camping out in Romans 8 over the last few weeks as I've been in my sermons and everything, and I'm going to go back there some more, just how the picture is that light overcomes darkness, and so we have to just keep focused and moving towards the light, and inviting people to come and know Jesus.
Well, what I was going to say too is like, as people know, they can get this book at the church, and I've got
Yes.
more copies if you want to get more. But I mean, you can leave these, you can give them to people. Um, if you can't speak, you leave them in laundry rooms, leave them in the doctor's office, leave it in a campground library. I do all those things too as I'm going along. I just leave them places. But people really need to be encouraged right now. Like I said, I ran into a lot of people that are struggling in their faith. I don't believe that most Christians know what's in this book. They don't know apologetics. They don't know the evidence. They think faith makes the Bible true, and that's not the case. The object of our faith is much more important than our faith. And even the Bible says, Paul said, if Jesus did not rise from the dead, my preaching is in vain and your faith is in vain. So what he's saying right there, he's saying that if it's not true, you're wasting your time.
Right.
And the Bible's filled with evidence. Jesus gave us all kinds of evidence. And then science is, I tell you, 100% on our side. Everything observable is on our side. And I just encourage people to learn the evidence themselves. It'll help their faith, and then to be able to defend the faith. 1 Peter 3:15. To give a reason for the hope that lies within you. Um, People need to hear. They really do, and they will listen. Especially right now, they will listen. And if they reject you, they're not rejecting you; they're rejecting the gospel. And the thing is that they're not the person you're supposed to talk to. Go to the next one, and you'll find somebody that you're supposed to talk to. Just ignore that person. You know what? You know what it says in the Bible, right? It says when you're rejected or persecuted for the faith, your reward is great. So, I mean, you're building treasure in heaven while you're getting rejected. So don't worry.
Right. Right. But, it's very encouraging, too. What you say is that by and large, most people will talk to you. Especially when you're being sensitive to the Holy Spirit. I think people think they're getting set up for rejection after rejection, but I don't think that's the case. I think it happens, but we can't be afraid of it. But that more often than not, there are amazing conversations to be had.
Oh, there's amazing ones. I'm just telling you. I could tell you story after story of talking to people and then things that happened. I mean, just in connection with that conversation, something happened later in that day. Just amazing stuff. Just really cool stuff. So
Yeah.
God is and he'll use you if you'll speak. He wants us to, he does want us to tell people. Not everybody's going to do this. I mean, yeah, I'm, you don't have to be an expert and learn the good person test. I did that for years without ever knowing anything about the evidence. But then when I learned the evidence, actually what I feel like, there's a game, what's that? There's a video game. Doug probably knows it, where it's a war game where they fight and you can be in different places. This is a real popular one, Call of Duty, Call of Duty.
Okay.
And I say, I think you start with like a real simple weapon when you get in that game, okay? And then you build up as you get better weapons or something like that. I've never played it, but I know some video games are like that. And so when I go out to talk to people, and you can be this way too, learn the good person test, learn what's in this book, and then you can go out and you can feel well equipped to talk to people, and you can defend the faith, and then you can answer questions reasonably, and you can encourage people, and you can help people, and you can do a lot, and they're out there. Jesus said the harvest is ripe, but the workers are
Right.
few. It's really ripe right now. It really is. There's people looking, seeking, crying out, hurting, struggling. And we can share life with them, right? We're
Yeah.
supposed to minister. You know what it says in Second Corinthians, I think it's 3:6. We're supposed to minister life. The word minister means serve up. So we serve up life, not death. We're serving up life. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me too, some people feel a lot of pressure. We just need to be planting seeds. Sometimes, I mean, I've had the amazing pleasure of having conversations with people and then having them receive Christ. I mean, if I've had that happen lots of times, that's been one of those neat things in my life. But it doesn't always happen. But it doesn't mean it wasn't a valid. Sometimes it was a seed that got planted. And then I've had people come and tell me later on, well, what you did was significant for me, and that the next person that came along, all of a sudden it clicked and they gave their heart to Jesus, or those things happen along the way, and so you never know what thing you say, what act of kindness, what it is that's going to make a difference in someone's life, but we need to be doing those things. And so the I don't think the goal is not always to have someone cross the line and accept Jesus. It's okay if they, at least you get them thinking.
Right, right. Well, I'm 61, and my whole life, I've only been witnessed to by two people in my entire life. It's after I read the book Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and I was really thinking about God. That book is really heavily filled with scripture. You've read it, I'm sure, Steve. And that was years ago. And out of the blue, on a Sunday at my office in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona, I was a realtor. I had two people show up out of the blue within a half an hour of each other one tenant came in and proceeded to tell me how he used to beat his wife and how he used to do cocaine and he found Jesus and now it changed his life. He didn't know nothing about my life. He came in. The next one came in was an Asian woman that I was showing houses to. I was a realtor, and she knew nothing about my personal life. She came in with a Bible for me out of the blue. Now, I was thinking about God a lot at that time, but honestly, I wanted to do other things that I didn't think God would like, and so I was still in that place. And but what I'm gonna say to you is that when I talk to people, see, God told those people to come talk to me the
Right.
same day, only time in my entire life. So when I'm talking to people, or when you're talking to people, or when somebody who's watching is talking to somebody, or you feel like talking to somebody, I really believe a lot of times God, it's the same kind of thing. God's chased them. God's been talking to them through other people, through circumstances and things like that. And now He's put you there. And if you don't do it, He'll find somebody else.
Right.
But it's a great opportunity to do it. Now, don't use that as an excuse, though. Don't say, "Well, if I don't do it, he'll find somebody else." That's not good. I didn't mean
Right.
it that way. So,
Yeah.
but you know how I look at it. I didn't look at it a long time this way, but the Bible's real clear about building treasure in heaven. Jesus said, "Build treasure in heaven, so it'll be waiting for you when you get there." Is why He said. So it says it several times about building treasure in heaven. Now, not only does God allow us to build treasure in heaven, which is incredible, right? But virtually every day, He presents us opportunities to do it.
Yeah.
Love somebody, pray for somebody, help somebody, encourage somebody, witness to somebody. Now, when He does those things, right? When he gives me a silver platter with an opportunity, right? It's my choice. I can slap his hand away, slap the opportunity away, and say, "Look, Dad, I got enough treasure in heaven. I don't want that." Or I can say, "Hey, wow, listen, what a cool thing. God's given me this. I can build more treasure in heaven today." You know,
Yeah.
uh, I used to think that was selfish to think of it that way, and I don't go. That's not why I'm doing it. I've done it for years before I even thought of that. But God really pointed out to me. Not that I've written a few studies on it, and that's what He's doing. He's given us opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to do that. And I think if you, when I realized it, I thought back in my life about all the opportunities I had rejected. All the things that had been presented to me. I said, "No, I already give enough money." No, I'm too busy. I can't help them. No, you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
if we look at it this other way, because Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So there's
Right.
some kind of connection, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great. Well, that's great, Mike. I want to thank you for taking time, and we'll uh, we'll get you back. We got other things. We could talk about a lot of stuff. Mike is very interesting to have conversations with. We've had some great conversations, he and I, over scripture, and those are always fun to dig into. And we'll do that again in the future. But I appreciate you taking some time with us today and encouraging people. Mike's books, like I say, we do have some at the church, and we'd be happy to give them to you. And if you're not here on the island, you can certainly go to Amazon, and they're free on Amazon. There's a
Cover,
free download,
covered
right?
Dad's face there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Every down.
also his website too, god-evidence-truth.com. There it is. It's up there. Great spot. I spent some time there the other day. And like I said, he also writes a lot of articles on faithwriters.com. And what was that article you just told me about atheist? What was
Oh,
the name of that article?
atheism requires faith in miracles.
Right. Yeah.
Atheism
So
requires faith in miracles. So that's a very good article. Yeah. If you were to Google faith writers and Michael Edwards, you can find
mhm.
my articles. Faith writers. I read a lot of stuff on the New Covenant, but I was gonna say to you too is that this gravity is God's done a lot with this thing. It's in 1,300 prisons, over 1,300 prisons now, over 20,000 copies in 1,300 prisons. A lot of great stuff from prisoners. It's done really well there, and it's changed the mind. The information here. Now I say it's not specific. The information in this book has changed the mind of a lot of atheists, and that's what it was originally written for. Was for atheists. So I just encourage you. We sell these at our cost. if you want to buy some to give out. I just sell them at my cost. And Steve has a bunch at the church you can just have there too. So, um, I encourage you to do something. If not with this, with something, or just help people, love them, pray for them, encourage them. Like Steve does all the time. He's such a good example. Um, he's been such a great example for me, Steve. You've been so great. I mean, as far as what you do and how you live and how you encourage people and how you just stick to. And I like what you said a minute ago too. We can only do what's in our world, what's in our sphere. Um, I can't stop the riots. I can't stop coronavirus. But I can stop evil. I can overcome evil in my place in the world by doing good, because
Yeah.
it says don't let evil overcome good, but overcome evil with good.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's Romans 12:21 is that verse. Um,
Yeah.
so we can do it right where we're at. You're so right. And don't let Satan deceive you that what you're doing is too small or is not enough. Just do whatever it is, that little thing. Just do it. Just do that one little thing, and do one little call somebody, encourage them, love them. Just do those things, and keep on
Yeah.
listening to Steve. You got a great teacher, man. He's great. I watch him a
Oh,
lot,
you're kind.
actually myself. I do. I text him all the time and tell him how great his message was.
He, he really
So
he really does. He's very encouraging. He texts me a lot and thanks me for the match, which I appreciate. So it's very cool. But we really do appreciate you, and we'll get you back on here soon because I have lots of things we could chat about. So again, Mike's book, we have him at the church. You can get him. Check his website out. Read his articles, and just like he said, do it. I always say, do the next right thing. If we could just get everybody doing the next right thing, the enemy's done. It's done. He's got nowhere to work. He's got no room left. So that's what we keep pressing into. Well, thanks, Mike. We're gonna start chatting our way out here. And you're welcome to stay with us if you want. But we're gonna talk a little bit about what's coming up on the weekend. But if you're ready to go, I know you got a storm and stuff going there too. It's really up to you. We can keep you in or out.
I'll take it with
So
you guys and just have me back on. I'd love to talk to you again about some other stuff. I'd love to talk to you about some stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
okay,
We'll get a
all right,
part 2 scheduled here. So thank you again, Mike.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was awesome. So it's always
Okay,
and Mike's always
guys.
very
Dude,
encouraging. He usually sends me like, "Hey, worship was great this weekend too." I get those too.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Thanks, Mike. We love
Thank
you,
you,
man.
Mike.
God bless you.
We'll see you.
guys, take care.
All right, bye bye. All right. Well, that was
Oh.
great, and we do thank Mike for his time with us. So, I just wanted to, as we kind of wrap up here in the next few minutes, let's see. I'd like to give you a heads up on the weekend. And this weekend, we're going to be in Romans 8. And as I said, I'm going to be talking about what it means to be more than a conqueror. And I kind of left the last message last week, saying, have you ever thought about what it means? And then, well, I'm still not going to tell you today, but I will tell you on the weekend. And it's fascinating. But there is something in Romans 8 that I'm going to talk about first in next week. Next weekend on the Christian calendar is Trinity Sunday, is what it's called. And Romans 8 has this powerful picture of the Trinity at work. And I'll tie this in, but in Romans 8:26, it says, in the same way the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We looked at that verse last week. We don't know how to pray, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us. And then Romans 8:34 says, Christ Jesus is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. And in Romans 8:28, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. And so what we see is we've got the Spirit praying on earth with us. We've got Jesus in heaven praying for us. And we've got the Father working all things together for good. And so it's a powerful picture of the Trinity at work. And I think it's great, on Trinity Sunday that we see that happen. And so I'm going to bring that up before I start talking about what it means to be more than a conqueror, which I will talk about on Sunday. And Saturday night, too. If you can't wait till Sunday, you can watch it on Saturday night
Cool.
and see what we're doing. We've changed back to 4 services now on the weekend. So we have the space, and we've done 5 weeks back in person. This will be week number 6, and we're going to bring Children's Church back online. We're confident we can do that safely. We're going to be taking the kids' temperatures in the rooms, They'll only be back there about 30 minutes. We're going to keep them with us during worship and then send them back. And so there's guidelines that we'll be doing with the kids to keep them safe. And so we're going to meet Saturday at 7, Saturday evening 7. At 6:30, if you want to come, we'll open the doors at 6:30 and we'll have hot dogs if anybody wants to come.
They're pretty tasty hot dogs too.
Well, they're excellent hot dogs. We have to figure out food that you can have, finger food sitting in a chair, because we can't put the tables back in. That's going to be a while. So hot dogs. And then, so we're not going to do the 5 o'clock Saturday service anymore. And then on Sunday morning, we're going to not do the 7 a.m. We'll be back at 8, 9:30, and 11. And on your way in, we'll have a breakfast sandwich for you, or an Uncrustable or a Pop-Tart. Get those on the way in, because, you kind of have to on the way out. But we'll have them ready for you, and you can get a cup of coffee in the foyer. Someone will serve it to you so that you're not touching things. The whole thing is keeping these services as touchless as possible, so we can keep people as safe as possible and enjoy that time together. So we're looking forward to it. And like I keep saying, listen, when you're ready, when we're ready, when you are, we're back. We've been back 5 weekends. We put new guidelines in again. We sort of altered them a little so that when you're in your seat, it's okay for you to take your mask down because you're socially distanced. That's why we can have coffee and food again. But, you need to have a mask to come in, and anytime you're walking around, you need to have your mask on, and if you're talking to somebody, you should have your mask on, and especially if you're singing, you need to have your mask on. But other than that, you can sit and have your mask off. If you want, you can keep your mask on all the time too. We're trying to, make everybody, there's no wrong here. It's just
Right.
where you feel safe. We bless it, we get it. And there's lots of different opinions on those things, and we're just trying to find that spot where we can honor them all. But and we'll continue to do an excellent job we can with online things. And we know that some people are still more comfortable there, and that's great. But when you're ready, we are. So no rush, and so that's happening. So that's what's coming up this weekend. How about with you, Doug? What's happening worship-wise?
So this Friday night, we've been working really hard on getting the arcade set up. So we've got a brand new setup in there. So the OMY
Which
team,
is our youth room.
It's our youth room, yes. It's and we spell it ARKADE.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
just kind of a little play on word there. But yeah, we're gonna have the youth band come in. And we're gonna live stream it Friday at 7. We will live stream it to the church page, so it will be sort of younger focused. But that'll be good. And if you've been on social media over the last few months, you see a lot of like acoustic-y worship sessions, and I really just wanted to rock out with an electric guitar. So that'll be this Friday at 7. So I'm looking forward to that. And then our weekend set, I'm doing an old Matt Redman tune. It's not that old, 2011. Here for You. That's a great call to worship song. After that, Kimmy's going to do Worthy. And then we've got Micaiah Underwood singing with us this weekend. She's going to do the song Closer by Bethel, and we'll end with the Vineyard song Cherry Blossoms. So really looking forward to the set. It's going to be fun. I was working on the techie stuff earlier today, so it's going to be good. Yeah, looking forward to seeing as many people as we can see there safely.
Yeah, safely. And people ask, we have not been overwhelmed with people. I had some people initially say they were not coming because they thought there'd be, scores of people, and that's not what's been going on. It's the busiest service we've had since we've come back was one service we had 100 people, but it's in that big facility, everybody had lots of room and everybody was social distanced.
Plenty of space,
so,
so it's definitely not crowded. We don't need to do, I see some churches making people do reservations. That's not been the case for us. Now, it might have been because we had 6 services going on.
But even then, the earlier services have been small. So Saturday night, there's plenty of room on Saturday nights, and Sunday at 8, there's plenty of room. And even at 9:30, that's been the busier one. There's still plenty of room. And 11 has lots of space. So, the busiest one has been 9:30. All the other ones have plenty of room. So if whenever you're ready, we're there. And but we get it. It takes time. All the Zoom meetings are still happening. and we'll keep pressing on with those. And I think that's
Yeah, we're
pretty much
doing.
it from me.
That was a great
We
talk
are
with
we are
Mike.
doing it. Yeah, Outreach Saturday, drive-through giveaway, and that's new. So I did want to mention that. So we're not doing the Hello Vineyard meal kits. We've got deals worked out with 4 of the local restaurants, and we'll be giving gift certificates out to them on Saturday, along with fresh produce and paper towel and toilet paper. So that's coming up this Saturday, and so we're going to do those on Saturdays for a little while. We stopped the Wednesday one, uh, and so that's happening. So Saturday from 9 to 11, you can get the word out on that. And I think that's it from me.
Yeah, that was it was fun having Mike on. Glad we could get that done. We talked yesterday briefly, getting his stuff worked out. So I'm glad we could do that. And next week will be good. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And now, for a brief word from our sponsors, the Hello Vineyard
Oh yeah.
podcast is sponsored by Keys Vineyard Community Church. You can check them out at keysvineyard.com. We think they're great people there. They're some of our favorites. Also, this podcast is sponsored by the Jesus Moment Bible Institute. If you'd like to get an associate's or a bachelor's degree absolutely for free, you can go to onlinebibleinstitute.org. It's a great college program from us. You can dive in and not have to worry about drowning in student loan debt. It's a wonderful thing.
That's right. And we get to help people all over the world. I love that.
That's yeah.
When that's one of those over 1,100 students now, and a lot of them are foreign students, and I'm really excited about that opportunity to encourage those people, and so many of them pop right into ministry, and it's a very cool thing. So we're happy about that. And some people might ask, there's no Gibson in the picture. What happened to the cat? And the thing is that there was a big storm today with lots of lightning, and the cat went under the bed and has refused to come out. So she will find her way out sometime in the middle of the night, I'm sure, and end up back in her post in here. But that's what's going on with that. And okay, I think
we're good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in to the Hello Vineyard podcast. Thanks for being a part. If you're on Facebook, like the church page, YouTube, subscribe. I feel like a real YouTuber now. I always wanted to say stuff like that. Smash the like button is the new thing. I'm a big YouTube watcher. So anyway, do the thing. Yeah, you smash it. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. You'll catch me on Friday.
Bye.